Xin được giới thiệu phần trình bày của ông Brian Lee Shun Rong.
Good afternoon, everyone. First off, I'd like to thank Forbes Việt Nam for inviting me to speak at this forum. Mr. Kwong, Mr. Zhang. Maybank Investment Banking Group has been in ASEAN since in 1973 and in Vietnam since 2008. We have grown to become ASEAN's leading homegrown investment bank, the voice of the ASEAN opportunity as a deal maker and a promoter for ASEAN businesses and a thought leader for sustainability in our region. I'm Brian Lee, an economist with Maybank, and I'm honored to bring you this presentation about Vietnam's quest to become a new tiger economy in the post-COVID era. So I'll just start off with an outline of my presentation. In just 30 years, Vietnam has transformed from one of the world's poorest economies to become a middle-income country. GDP per capita has risen full from 1985 to the present, and poverty rates have fallen sharply from over 70% to just 2%. Vietnam has achieved this on the back of a foreign direct investment-led industrialization strategy, enabled by a favorable business environment, low labor costs, and a strategic geographical location. The road ahead to high income must be led by high productivity through strategic investments in human capital and infrastructure and strengthening domestic supporting industries. A strong digital economy will be a new growth source as well as a competitive strength enabled by abundant startup funding, young digital natives, and wide access to affordable and speedy internet. To future-proof the digital economy, it will be important to strengthen cybersecurity, develop a digitally skilled workforce, and use digital tools to improve environmental sustainability. A key reason for Vietnam's rapid industrialization is because it has been really successful in attracting investments from foreign manufacturers. Foreign investment has transformed the country into a low-cost manufacturing export hub and a key node in the global supply chain. As you can see from this chart, inbound FDI has been consistently higher than the rest of ASEAN in percent of GDP terms, and I think I better use this. And the lion's share much better. Thank you. The lion's share of around 60 to 70% has been in the manufacturing sector. Exports have boomed 5 times from 2010 to 2021 at a much faster pace compared to the rest of ASEAN, increasing around 2 times as a whole. In terms of product sophistication, Vietnam has moved up the value chain. So over 2010 to 2021, textiles, garments, and footwear export share has decreased from 23% to 15%, as you can see from this chart here. And while the share of electronics exports, which include telephones, has risen from 8% to 32%. This has happened as more foreign electronics giants have set up and ramped up production on Vietnam's shores over the past decade. Vietnam has been a key beneficiary as MNCs diversify and reduce their dependence on China. This trend has been only reinforced with the US-China trade war and rising US-China tensions increasingly, China's zero-COVID and lockdowns, and even the Russia-Ukraine war. Recently, Apple, Google, and even Xiaomi have announced plans to move some of their production to Vietnam. Labor productivity in tandem has improved significantly. It grew at an average of 5% per annum over the past decade, which is higher than around 1 to 3% per annum for the rest of ASEAN. But in terms of productivity levels, as you can see from this chart, so Vietnam would be the red line, Vietnam still lags behind the other ASEAN economies. Why has Vietnam been such a hotbed for foreign investment? So there are 3 key reasons. First, a favorable business environment. Political stability has ensured consistency in economic development policy and in attracting foreign investment. The country has also embraced trade liberalization. You can see on the table here that Vietnam has signed a wide range of free trade agreements with most major economies, which enhances manufacturers' access to low tariff access to top markets. Its FTA network is the top in ASEAN, just behind Singapore, and among the most comprehensive in Asia. The government has complemented external liberalization with investment reforms to adopt a more pro-investor approach, while aiming to reduce administrative bureaucracy. This includes, for instance, simplifying registration procedures and progressive relaxation of foreign ownership caps in local companies. And these reforms have fostered a better regulatory environment, with this chart here showing that Vietnam's foreign investment restrictions have actually improved significantly over the past decade. You can see from the gray bar to the yellow bar here. Gray bar will be 2010 and the yellow bar is 2020. And in fact, Vietnam's FDI restrictions have become the least restrictive in ASEAN, just behind Singapore. But that said, significant administrative hurdles, for instance, in starting a business and in paying taxes, are still a significant issue to be worked on to further improve the ease of doing business in Vietnam. A second reason is that Vietnam offers competitive labor costs. Manufacturing wages, for instance, remain only around half of China. China is the top bar here, and lower than most of ASEAN as well. And this, in addition, its workforce also has the fundamental skills required by manufacturers with a high literacy rate of 96%, on par with the rest of ASEAN. And this is due to the government's high levels of public investment in general education. The third reason would be Vietnam's prime geographical location, which enhances its ability to interconnect with the world's biggest economies. The country is naturally suited for maritime trade because of its 3,260-kilometer long coastline, which enhances its ability to I guess, like, in terms of close to numerous international shipping routes. It's also highly connected to China on the northern side via land, which actually facilitates the flow of manufacturing raw materials and finished goods. To achieve the next phase of growth, to become a high-income country, the next phase of growth must be driven by productivity. And this is even more important because Vietnam's population growth is slowing, which will reduce its demographic dividend in the future. How can this be done? I will highlight 4 points. First, more upskilling will be needed. Demand for skilled talent is heating up with the influx of foreign investment, and companies are having a tough time finding enough highly skilled workers. Workers need to be regularly upskilled and reskilled to be equipped with the right knowledge to meet quickly evolving industry demands. Training programs should be formed in close partnership with companies to develop skill sets that match the specific jobs which are in demand. Vietnam should also focus on boosting enrollment in higher education. As you can see from this chart here, Vietnam being the red color line again, it still remains, the general enrollment rate in higher education still remains lower than the rest of its peers in ASEAN. And employers report that university graduates tend to have some skills gaps relative to their needs. There are some steps in the right direction to modernize the higher education system, such as granting universities more autonomy in areas such as student enrollment and curriculum development under the 2018 amended higher education law. The policy intent of autonomy is well-intentioned indeed, but the implementation in practice will be even more important to ensure success. A highly educated workforce, I have to stress, is an important enabler for a country to break through the middle income trap. To give you a case in point, the original tiger economies of Asia, Singapore, South Korea, Taiwan, developed high-quality universities long before their economies needed more highly educated workforce. Second, you have to strengthen the linkages and spillovers between large enterprises, whether it is foreign enterprises or homegrown domestic enterprises, and local supporting industries. MNCs in Vietnam, for instance, tend to import large proportions of their parts and components. And when they buy locally, they tend to buy from foreign rather than domestic suppliers. For instance, as you can see from this chart here, Japanese companies procured 37% of their components and parts from local companies in 2020. While that's an improvement from 22% in 2010, it's still lower than 60% in Thailand and 47% in Indonesia. Developing a strong network of competitive local suppliers will enhance the transfer of knowledge. This will also make Vietnam more resilient to global supply chain disruptions, which are increasingly more prevalent, and make Vietnam more competitive as a one-stop shop for the manufacturing. The third point would be to enhance infrastructure capacity to keep up with industrialization. I think that the top priorities should be transportation and energy. Vietnam's lagging behind regional peers like Malaysia and Thailand in terms of infrastructure quality, as you can see from the World Economic Forum Global Competitiveness Report ranking as shown in this chart here. Let me zoom in just on transport infrastructure. Rapid growth has put pressure on Vietnam's infrastructure network, causing bottlenecks at ports, congestion on highways, and delays at airports. There are large infrastructure projects in progress which will enhance connectivity and improve capacity. So for instance, more than 2,000 kilometers of highways are targeted to be built during the 2021 to 2025 period. That's more than twice of the current level. But the Long Tan International Airport will also alleviate congestion at Ho Chi Minh City's existing airport when open in 2025. But construction projects, the progress of construction projects has generally been slow and lacking. Challenges that need to be addressed include complex administrative procedures, land clearance bottlenecks, and coordination issues between agencies involved. Now, a fourth point would be to develop a strong digital economy. This will be both a new growth source as well as a competitive strength. So let me start by giving you the current state of play today. The digital economy has grown significantly over the past decade, reaching 8% of GDP by 2021. Driven by the explosion of e-commerce, the internet economy has become the third largest in ASEAN, as you can see from this chart here. And in fact, it's predicted to be the second largest in ASEAN behind Indonesia by 2025. Cashless payments, which include credit cards, contactless transactions, mobile wallets, QR code payments, are growing rapidly. A survey of retailers last year revealed that cashless payments made up 73% of total retail transactions. Vietnam's consumers are the second most receptive towards cashless payments in ASEAN, according to this chart over here. For instance, 83% of consumers plan to use cashless more often, and this bodes well for the future of cashless in Vietnam. Mobile wallets have been gaining lots of traction, turning Vietnam into what I call a wallet-first cashless society. According to the Visa survey, 75% of consumers prefer mobile wallets over credit cards. And this is actually similar to the rest, some of other ASEAN countries like Indonesia, like Thailand as well, and maybe also like the Philippines. But it contrasts with countries like Singapore and Indonesia, where consumers tend to prefer credit cards over mobile wallets. The pandemic has forced firms to digitize to reach customers and enable employees to work remotely. The proportions of firms, for instance, using digital tools has quadrupled to 21% in January 2021 from 5% in June 2020, while the usage rates of digital platforms has grown from 48% to 73%. Large firms have begun to use digital tools to help with advanced functions like production planning. That's 60% of large firms, as you can see from the red bar here, and also supply chain management, 40% of large firms. Small and medium enterprises, though, which account for 97% of total enterprises in Vietnam, they are keeping up with large firms in terms of the digitalization of, like customer-facing functions like marketing, like sales and payment methods. But in terms of the more complex digital functions, the more complex business functions, SMEs are still lagging behind. And the common constraints include like lack of know-how, uncertainty about the benefits to digital technology, and also insufficient access to external funding. Of course, I must say that this is a common problem in the region, actually. It's not just Vietnam. Even in Singapore, our SMEs are facing this problem as well. I think there are three key catalysts for the rise of the digital economy. First, startup funding has been abundant. Vietnam is becoming a magnet for startup investment in ASEAN due to its strong growth and fast-growing middle class. Investment in startup hit a record high of $1.3 billion in 2021. That's fourfold from 2020 and 57% higher than 2019. And there's strong investment appetite for digital services, in particular fintech, e-commerce, and education technology. There are 4 homegrown unicorns in the payments and gaming space, and 11 startups worth more than $100 million. In fact, 3 out of 4 unicorns have been minted over the past 2 years during the pandemic alone. And that's including VNPay, Momo, these are payments firms, and SkyMavis, a blockchain gaming company. A second catalyst is the young consumer class of digital natives. The median age is only at 33 years old as of 2021, which is relatively young compared to advanced countries like South Korea and Singapore, and even Thailand, an emerging economy. And what's more, the country will continue to have favorable demographic structure for the next 20 years. That's a golden population structure predicted to last until 2040. Vietnam's youth have been quick to adopt smartphones, the driving force of the digital economy. Smartphone penetration has expanded dramatically from just 26% in 2017, that's not too long ago, just 5 years ago, to 68% in 2021, even overtaking China. The third catalyst is a cheap and relatively zippy internet. So as you can see from this chart here, Vietnam actually has the cheapest internet in ASEAN, and indeed is among the cheapest in the world, in fact, which has enabled wide affordability among the whole of the population. Mobile speeds have improved lately to become, in fact, the second fastest in ASEAN, according to the Ookla speed test. And although Vietnam still has room to improve on the global ranking at around 50th place in the world. Fixed broadband speeds are the fourth fastest in ASEAN. You can see that in this chart as well, behind Malaysia and Thailand. But speeds are improving rapidly, for instance, rising 45% in the first quarter of 2022 from a year ago, according to the government's data. To future-proof and sustainably develop the digital economy, cybersecurity will be an important factor. So cyber attacks are on the rise in Vietnam in line with the global trend. The government has been strengthening monitoring and proactive scanning against cyber threats and also raising public awareness. And its cybersecurity efforts have not gone unnoticed. Vietnam jumped 25 places to 25th in the world in cybersecurity commitment as measured by the Global Cybersecurity Index in 2020. And you can see that here. A digital-ready workforce will also be essential to future-proof the digital economy, because if skills do not catch up with advancing technology, jobs of the future may need to be filled by imported talent, while some lower-skilled workers will be made redundant by technology. Demand for IT talent has surged and businesses are facing difficulties finding enough specialized talent, including computer programmers, IT engineers, and so on. The country is currently lacking over 70,000 IT workers per year. Vietnam's lagging ASEAN in terms of available digital skills, according to a World Economic Forum ranking, as shown in this chart here. And Vietnam was also the lowest, 82nd in the world, ranking for the INSEAD's 2021 Global Talent Competitiveness Index. Future-proofing the digital economy also means making full use of digital technologies to help the environment. Now, digital technologies undeniably contribute to carbon emissions. So, for instance, they account for around 4% of global greenhouse gas emissions. That's a similar level, or maybe even higher than the global airline industry. But digitalization and decarbonization can go hand in hand and help Vietnam to achieve its net zero emissions target by 2050. How you can promote smart data centers which use IoT sensors to collect data on the conditions inside and predictive analytics to optimize energy usage. You can digitize the supply chain to reduce wastage and make more data-driven decisions in the agriculture industry to optimize livestock production and manage the usage of chemical inputs like fertilizers. Digital tools can in fact also be used to improve climate disaster risk management. IoT can be used to provide an early warning system for floods, boosting Vietnam's adaptation to climate change. So for instance, the flood warning system for the Brisbane River Basin in Australia uses automated telemetry equipment to collect real-time data on rainfall and river height, and which are then fed into models to issue real-time river height predictions and flood warnings, which are quickly disseminated to the public. I've come to my last slide, so I just want to sum up that to become a high-income economy, to become the next Asian tiger, Vietnam must develop world-class physical infrastructure, a skilled and future-ready workforce, build up its own dynamic local firms, and accelerate digitalization. The road ahead is by no means a walk in the park. It will not be easy, but I'm confident that with Vietnam's many strengths and push to continuously do better, the future will indeed be a promising one. Thank you.